Good evening, and thank you for joining us here at Safe Space. For those of you that have never come by, Safe Space is a place of exchanging information, exchanging ideas, encouragement, and it's become a place that has become very apparent to me of storytelling and information sharing again. Tonight, we have a guest that has a wealth of information and experience that will help you with your inner healing. We all need healing of some type, whether it's for growth in our lives to be able to move to a different level in God and in promotion in our life in general, whether it's healing from childhood trauma or traumas that we've experienced as adults, whether it's healing from proclivities and paradigms that we have, the paradigms we develop through our life experiences, but proclivities we develop from things that we do right and wrong. So often we find ourselves in places of comfort and we end up making the same, I might as well just say it, mistakes in our life over and over again because we do the same things. We allow the same types of people to come into our lives. We develop the same habits, but none of these things sometimes produce the positive outcomes that we are looking for. Dr. Mitchell is here tonight. She is of the Glory Agency. Dr. Mitchell is so many things. She is an academic, scientist, a teacher, a speaker, an author, a grant writer, a consultant. She leads and manages a research laboratory at an academic institution where she studies kidney stone disease. Outside of science, she owns her own counseling and publishing company called the Glory Agency. She has many testimonies on her website. One speaks of the imperative mentor she's been throughout this person's career. She's incredibly grateful for the sound professional advice and the availability and genuine presence of Dr. Mitchell. Ashana B is just one testimony that I read on her website. There are many speaking to her professionalism. This book, which I have thoroughly enjoyed, it's called Renew the Inner You. It is a 5-step practical application of telling us what we need to do to heal the inner us. And so often we hear sermons, we hear self-help books, we see all types of things that we may partake in, but it doesn't give us practical application with biblical backing to tell us what to do. Simply step one, step two, what to do. Welcome, Dr. Mitchell, and we are so happy to have you here at Safe Space.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I'm really, really excited about tonight's conversation.
We are so happy to have you here. One of the things that I noticed in your book is the introduction. The
hmm
introduction was different than any introduction that I read, even your forward. Your forward explains exactly. It says this book causes you to address the thoughts, the emotion that are often silenced, ignored, or even out of control. That's a big thing. Again,
hmm
this book causes you to address the emotions that are often silenced, ignored, or even out of control. It will activate intimate and transparent conversation with God regarding the situations that concern you most. Finally, it provides practical suggestions to help you walk by faith in different areas of your life. I think that is awesome. And another thing that is so interesting to me about this book that I would like you to elaborate on your thought process and how you develop this is the part two of the book, which is very vast. This is just a little bit, you guys, of the part two. It talks about abuse, alone time, or feeling lonely, anger, brokenness, complaining, confusion, disappointment, discouragement, discipline, doubt, fear, frustration, guilt, identity, illness, impatience, jealousy, lack, loss, misunderstanding, feeling overwhelmed, pride, quitting, rejection, sadness, selfishness, stress, tiredness, unforgiveness. That's a big one. Weakness
Right.
and worry. All
hmm
of those things she deal with. But what's so interesting about the way the book is set up, if I may um, talk about that just briefly before you explain to us how you came about all of this. She gives a vast introduction, but in each one of those areas that I just spoke about, when you open a page, just say for instance, you want to read about abuse. When you open the page about abuse, it has the word abuse at the top. It says, when you struggle with abuse, having been harmed, mistreated, or neglected, she gives the problem or the challenge. Then she gives something that's called a counter thought for each of these emotions that we may have. The counter thought for abuse is an emotion response is that you are accepted by God. Just simple, point blank to the point. You're accepted by God no matter who's abused you or what they've done to you. You are valued and appreciated. Then she gives a scripture from the book. For this one was from the book of Matthew 11:28 through 30, also Psalms 46 and 1. And then she gives a verbal confession that she wrote that you could use as a daily decoration that you could read, as well as a prayer. And then she gives practical suggestions of how you deal with this emotion if you're feeling this at a given time or on a daily basis. This is excellent. And if you notice, these are the 5 steps of the practical applications that you can use as a daily devotion or when you're feeling that way to combat abuse. This is excellent. How did you
Thank
do
you.
this?
Thank you so much, and thank you for a thorough overview of two key parts of the book. So I can just explain a little bit how the birth or how the book was birthed. It was over the course of several years. When I was younger, I dealt with a lot of emotions, and I was often encouraged to just try to manage the emotions. But just because of different life situations, I really struggled with different things, and I found that this critical point in my life, it was a lot going on. Specifically, I can just name one thing. It was a broken engagement. And so I was really upset about this because I was really excited about potentially getting married and, having a family and things like that. And because of that situation, plus so many more things, it just kind of magnified, a need to get a greater, I would say, substance instead of trying to do it on my own. And so I've always had a relationship with God, but these critical points of my life, I really had to dig deep because I realized that no one could really fill those voids that I was experiencing or help me to manage those emotions. And so over the course of several years, God was kind of giving me strategy on how to just heal me. And eventually he told me to, start writing it out. And, at the time I felt like I wasn't
That's you.
really sent me. I wasn't really capable of that actually just distracted me. So really what I was just saying was that, at the time I was craving help and I found that God was the only source for that. And so we walked through a process of healing that was very challenging at the same time, but very rewarding. And so one thing I want to make sure I mention is that, healing is not a one-time thing, it's a lifetime long thing. And so I wrote this book and it was great strategy. But even to this day, there are times when I come home and I'm like, man, I really don't feel good or I feel some type of way. And I have to pause and ask myself, okay, what is the emotion I'm feeling? And sometimes I don't know. So then I go to my book and then I try to, identify exactly what is it that I'm feeling and then meditating on the scriptures. I found that as I was going through different things in my life back then and even now, I always try to make sure I pray, but also read scriptures because I found it to be very helpful and really changing my mindset. Because it's so easy to get kind of tunnel vision about how we feel. We can get so emotional that we are not really being led by God and the Spirit of God. Instead, what we're doing is allowing our emotions to dictate how we should feel and how we should respond. And so, as I continued with the process of the book, I'm able to, start to speak those things instead of speaking what I feel. So eventually, that starts to change how I feel. And of course, being complemented and supplemented with prayer was really the I guess the catalyst as well to really make sure that I could implement and get to a certain place. But, oftentimes culture really says, okay, well, you can just pray a situation away. Or the opposite end of the scale is, okay, well, I feel some type of way. So now let me just go, drink it away. Let me go party it away, whatever other vice that we try to fill it in, even if it's like eating a bag of cookies. I've done that before myself. several times in life. Whenever I've been very emotional, I'll try to eat a whole lot of food. But what I found that it's not one or the other. It has to be both of them married together. And so that's the purpose of the book, is really trying to communicate to the reader that, hey, you don't have to only pray, but you also have to make practical steps. Like, it's not a just, oh, God fix my problems. It's, okay, what else do I need to do to make sure that I take responsibility and be accountable for my own actions in the course of my life?
What I find so interesting and why I'm so excited about when we met and you got up and spoke briefly, we were all at a self care weekend that CJ Wade was giving, and I had the opportunity to participate in. But you married, for lack of a better term, what we feel in our flesh and the importance of how we use the Word of God and feeding our spirit to address it, and it attracted to me to what you were saying. And I knew nothing about your book at that time. I knew nothing about who you were or what you did, but it was such a draw to me, because I think so often, as you just said, people use food, alcohol, drugs to self-medicate when we have issues. Shopping, I can attest to myself. I will, um, when my mom passed, I did a lot of shopping, and it's something that I like to do anyway. But I would find that when I would have those moments, because I caregave for 7 years, so for a period of time, I didn't know what to do with myself, because my
Mm-hmm.
time was filled with planning to
Right.
make sure that something didn't fall apart, or
Mm-hmm.
actually doing it, or trying to rest. And then I had the responsibilities of life, working. I had responsibilities to my church. I had responsibilities to a number of things in life. So my hours were constantly filled. And so then after she died, I had this big void on top of the fact that my mom was gone, which
Right.
the grief of that was enough. So I
Mm-hmm.
had to feel it some type of way. So I would shop,
Right.
and it can really become an issue, just like eating or drinking or anything else. And one of the things you said in your introduction goes along with what you just said. You said the inability to control our thoughts, our emotions, and that what works to hurt us. We miss opportunities to excel in our life because we haven't dealt with these things and healed these things. And what I love, again, I'm going to beat this dead horse over and over again, is how you did it in this book, because it gives people something. Even someone that's a babe in Christ can look at this. First of all, as you just said, identify what they're feeling, because that's the first step of healing anything, is to identify it and admit it. Like here, you have complaining, just simple, and it's written so simplistically that anyone can grasp it. You have it sectioned off, and you explained at the very front of your book what the 5 steps were and how they would read it. You broke it down. I want to show it to the audience, because they really need to buy this book. They need to go to your Glory Agency website and order it, or to Amazon. The 5 steps are broken down here. And the first step she has is identify what you're currently thinking. So that's what we just said, to identify. 2, meditate on the scriptures to address your thinking. Simple. 3, change your confession, which means change our verbiage, change, which would lead to changing your feelings. You have noted under here. Pray often to help you move forward, which is number 4. And number 5 is implement practical steps to change your response. And the way you address that in the book is that you gave them confessions, like declarations to speak, as well as prayers. In the front of the book, also, you speak of um, the more time we spend with God. I read it the other day. You said, I am certain that the more you believe, pray, and speak God's truth, you will be empowered to live out his kingdom purpose for your life. I encourage you to remember that God is a wonderful Father, and he is faithful to perform everything he promised, and he starts in you.
Right, right. I want to also make sure I mention the point, because this book is not only directed towards Christians, and it's for anyone that might be trying to connect with God. And what my goal was to attract and target that audience as well as Christians. But this is really supposed to be a jump start. So, for example, let's say you don't know God, you read this, and hopefully that will cultivate um, a relation. You're able to cultivate a relationship with Him. Or let's say you are a Christian or you believe in God, and maybe you strayed away. This is supposed to activate those conversations again. And then even if you're just someone that's more seasoned, maybe you just need to like, reignite some things in your relationship with God, or even just say, you know what, okay, maybe, and I'll say it this way, and maybe it's a place of getting out of a place of tradition, but maybe more intimacy. So it's really supposed to be a tool and a resource to help people get back in alignment with who they were created by, which is God. And so when you're in alignment with Him, you're able to function more like Him. You're able to be who He created you to be. And so that's what I'm really trying to um, ensure it happens with this book.
That is very understandable. I was thinking as I was reading it, and it's ironic that you said that, that it would be a great jump start for someone that is trying to build a relationship with God to lead them to Him, because you everything that you speak about, you give scriptural foundations and backing, and you also teach how to pray with the prayers that you've written for someone that may be starting out, and you teach
Hmm.
them how to speak declarations over their lives in each of these areas. You're very straightforward and simplistic in what you're saying, so it's not
Yeah,
something, because some people are, I was years ago, I was raised in church. You can go to church but still not be cultivating a relationship with God and
right.
spending intimate time with Him and praying in the way that we should pray, or even definitely not getting to the point of listening and trying to hear His voice. So, all of those are different things and different steps that you develop as Christians. So,
Hmm.
one of the things that I noticed in this book, that you're very deliberate is the word that I'm looking for, in pointing people to specifics of what it is that they're dealing with, which I think is helpful. But it would also lead a person that becomes more curious to possibly spend more time in the word. So I do
Right.
see that. So tell us a little bit about the Glory Agency and
Sure.
the consulting arm of what you do.
Sure. So outside of being a scientist, I also have a company called the Glory Agency. And with the company, our goal is to help people to discover who they were created to be. And so I have consultations, and some of the consultations lead to people needing help with, you know, writing or publishing a book, as well as career consultations. So if someone needs help with resumes or writing emails, things like that, there's just a multitude of different services that we offer. One of the things that I'm really is a great strength of mine is being able to talk to someone and listen to them and understand, the goals that they're really interested in achieving. And then I can just talk to them, ask questions, and eventually come up with a strategy to help them get there. And, it's really a gift of mine, is really taking the opportunity to be able to connect with people and then helping them get to the next level of their lives, whether that's getting into graduate school or medical school, or starting a business, whatever that is. I've helped a lot of people, and it's really because I just enjoy listening to people and trying to help them become who they were created to be. So that is the mission of that agency, and it's something I'm also really proud of, and I enjoy doing.
I'm sure that's been a huge help, because a lot of the testimonies that I read about you was because people are struggling to
Hmm.
try to move to that next phase or next level, even if they know what it is. Sometimes
Hmm.
just getting started is the hardest part. And it seems that you do have a gifting in that area to be able to listen to them and give them that little push that they need to get moving, or even to identify what it is that they need to get moving on. So you're a scientist, an academic scientist. Give us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I am a scientist. I have always wanted to be a scientist since I was probably 8 or 9 years old. And there was some moments of life where I kind of swayed and thought maybe I wanted to go in a different direction. But what I do is it's very fun. That's what I'll first say. And it does have some challenges, but it consists of, again, mentoring people. So I have a lot of trainees that work with me, and trainees, I mean like graduate students, undergraduate students, sometimes medical residents. And so what I do is help them understand science and perform scientific experiments. So what we're really focused on is trying to understand kidney disease and also any other type of urological condition. So something like kidney stones or kidney cancer, and how diet plays a role in that process. So we do a lot of experiments and clinical trials and trying to really make scientific discoveries. So that's kind of like my analytical hat. So I can do a lot of experiments there. And then I take that hot hat off and put another hat on to be, even more creative and try to give back. But I think, what's most important is for me is really trying to make sure that whatever I'm doing is able to motivate and encourage other people, whether that's through education or even just ministering to people, whatever that looks like. I just want to make sure that I leave a positive impact on the lives of people I interact with.
Well, you have a lot of hats because grant writing is a part of that as well. Do you
Right.
specialize in grant writing in a certain genre, whether it be education, or do you span the gamut? Do you do all types of grant writing?
No, so I primarily do scientific writing. However, I have helped people with community grants, which is a testimony on my actual website with the Glory Agency. I have a couple of websites, but the Glory Agency has the testimonies about how I helped a nonprofit organization get a significant amount of money, and scholarships for their students. And that was something I'm really grateful I had the opportunity to do because it was really helpful to make sure that the next generation is able to be set up to be successful. So if that means I can, help with some essay writings or at least edit them. I didn't write them. I didn't write this essay, but I did edit it and, help with, interviews and being prepared for those type of things. Those kind of things are very rewarding for me and something that I feel like is something I really will never forget, to be able to know that I was able to help change the trajectory of that particular person and their generations and people that come after them.
Well, you don't have to give the names or anything, but give us a little more about that testimony because it was very interesting. I'm sure my audience would love to hear about it because it was a nonprofit and how it affected the community as well as the person.
Yeah, so that particular nonprofit was really focused on helping high school students and college students get scholarships. And they really were just communicating on the testimony how I helped them make a significant amount more in their grant funding. So we applied for several different community grants, but the scholarship I was just referring to for that particular student is from a disadvantaged background, and he ended up going out of state, but his scholarship was worth of $200,000. So
Exactly.
that I was just really excited about that.
Yes, the
Yeah,
dollar amount made me go,
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
that
It's a blessing to be able to do that.
that has to be very, very rewarding. So how
Yeah.
does the Glory Agency, if it does at all, commingle with your grant writing or your research? Is it all separate entities? You just been multi-layered, blessed, and being able to do all these things very well, or do they
Yeah.
tie together in any?
I would say I have been blessed with a lot of talents, and sometimes I feel like, whoa, this is a lot. How do I manage this? And I think that's something that I've come across with a lot of people I've talked to. They have all of these ideas of things they want to start. And I like to think of like these gifts or these ideas kind of like a soundboard, a
Mm-hmm.
music soundboard. And what I've learned is that, it's best to think about what time frame of your life, the time frame that you're in. So for example, let's say right now I am in a space where I have a little bit more time to focus on other business endeavors. Whereas some seasons of my life, I got to focus on grant writing. So I had to adjust, like, okay, this is the ideas I have. Okay, I need to scale back. This one's more of a priority. And so I find that to be helpful to help me manage all of this because it is a lot. And I am getting to the point where I am hoping to have more hands on deck to help me in some ways. Like even just preparing for this conversation with you tonight, just a few minutes before we started, the lights all go out in my house, and I'm trying to scramble to turn the lights on and then make sure the lighting is all right and everything else is all right. So I feel like I wanted to share that because people need to understand there's so much more going on than what you see on a YouTube video or a reel or a post. There's so many different moving parts, but with time, those people will come.
You know what? I'm so glad that you said that because so often I think people looking at different things think, okay, you're a young woman, obviously, and you're so accomplished. You have all of these facets of your life. And I think it can be daunting to some people because they don't see the preparation. They don't see the fact that you text me like 7 minutes before I can maybe 10 to come on and say, well, okay, my lights just went out. And I remember saying to LaShonda, I said, well, LaShonda, I'm not going to panic. And I seen the time that I would have panicked. And so often we don't know, as you just said, all of the working pieces that come together to bring a person to be used to try to do what it is that they feel that they were birthed here to do, that God sent them here to do. Some people may have one major thing, others may have 12 like you do, but there is an effort in because we're human and things happen and then things we can't control. So I think it speaks to working on and building your relationship with God and operating in that calm and the trust and the faith that we have in Him that, okay, you told me that this is what you want me to do. So no matter what tries to come my way to interrupt or to stop it or to cause me to could panic, that it's going to be okay and I'm going to remain calm and trust in you.
Exactly. That's exactly what I did. I said, okay, I'm not gonna lose it. It's gonna be fine. And it's
Because
fine.
it is. It is fine. And if we had come on a few minutes later, we just would have come on a few minutes later. And
Right,
that's the way I
right.
looked at it. And if you had never been able to come on, I would have come on and apologized and told them that we will come back at a later date because the
Yeah.
information that you have and who you are, I believe it is something that people need to see and know. Prayerfully, it will meet people at their place of need. They will go on Amazon and buy this book or contact you for grant writing or contact you for the glory agency. I think so often people don't know what it is that they're supposed to be doing. And it sounds that
Right.
you have been gifted in the area to help them, go down the path that they need to go down. Whatever it is of this information that someone may need, I pray that they find it. Period. In
Yep.
the discussion. And no matter what you or I had to go through to be here tonight, mission accomplished.
Right. Right.
Um, I was on a Bible study before coming on here with some women from my church. We're doing a book study, Discerning the Voice of God, with my first lady and another co laborer in my church, Joanne Brown. And before we came on, I was a little, as my mother would say, crossed up because I got some bad news about a friend today. And Joanne was teasing me, and I'm a big teaser. So I teased her and I was like, Joe, I'm not in the mood for this. I have a friend that's facing a health challenge. But I had to try to get it back together quickly because we had to do the class. I had to talk to you, and nobody, that's no one's issue. So you can't bring that heaviness into what you do. But it is very true that we have to push through, trust God to do what it is that He called us to do. And I think that's a great lesson. And another time that this book will come into play. This
Yes,
book
ma'am.
would be great for a time as such as this of how I was feeling today. So all I would have to do is sit down, identify what I was feeling, and I think it was overwhelmed, and that's toward the bottom of the list. It's covered in here. I was feeling overwhelmed, and sometimes you don't have the wherewithal to just pull it all back together. And if you can have something that is at hand that is very simple that you can refer to, it's a blessing.
Right,
Truly,
right,
truly a
right.
blessing. Well, if there's not anything else you'd like to share with us tonight, I want to thank you.
Well, I want to add a little bit more since we've
Come
talked a
on,
lot about the book.
come on.
Something that I want to mention is that it's, sometimes people say, "Oh, I read the book," and I'm like, "Okay, great." They finished it. And I'm like, "That's not the point. You're supposed to keep going back and forth, to it." So it's not an investment where you read it one time and you're
Mhm,
done. It's
mhm,
a book that you can use for the rest of your life.
mhm.
Also, I want to mention that whenever someone gets the book, they also have access to a complimentary workbook. And the
Download it.
work,
That's right.
right, right, you can download that and then fill out the questions. And, as you go through the process, at least for me, this wasn't the entire process of my healing during that time of my life. It also consisted of me deciding to go to get counseling because I needed to talk out some of the things that I was feeling, or, as I was going through the process, I was realizing that, oh, this did happen to me. I didn't remember that. It was suppressed, it was forgotten. So
Mhm,
as I went through counseling, those type of things were able to be really uprooted and dealt with so that
mhm,
I could be able to proceed forward because, the book is, again, it's a starting point, it's a maintenance, if you will, but it's definitely not the only thing that would be sufficient for you to get the healing, but it's one of the, and that's the other thing I wanted to mention. When I wrote this book, I understand that we live in a very microwave society. We want everything quick. And so these different chapters are not long on purpose because I understand that people do not want to always read several pages in a book. There are people that love books. I love books. I read books. But there are some people that are just like, yeah, I'm over reading books. I don't really want to read them. But these chapters are short on purpose, just to make sure that it can really be appealing to those that are avid readers or maybe those that do not prefer reading. But again, it's supposed to be a tool to really help you jumpstart the conversations with God and with yourself and being honest with yourself. And I also think that the book is important, especially based on the climate that we live in today, with everyone, realizing what's happening within our country and within our world. That a lot of people are anxious or afraid or frustrated, and those type of emotions, if they're not handled or dealt with properly, they can lead to negative outcomes that
mhm,
are usually acted out. So
mhm,
this is another resource to help people make sure that they really acknowledge those emotions, but also remembering that emotions are fleeting, right? So they're not permanent. But when you can replace those fleeting emotions with the word of God, strategy from God, you're able to be more stable and not able to go. The best way I like to describe it is not go into a space of mental gymnastics because this is kind of the climate we live in. So as we're, one day we're believing everything's going to be fine, and we watch the news and it's something else, and inflation, et cetera. All of those things can cause people to get kind of scattered. And so the goal, if one were to read this and they're in that space, hopefully it can cause this chaotic moment to come into a settled, calm state, because that's really what God wants you to want to be in this space. Because I best believe the spirit of God and who God is, his character is not like this. He's like
mhm,
this. He's calm.
mhm, mhm.
He's
And
calm.
that's very true. And I did look at the book, and I hope I communicated that this is a reference for you to
Hmm.
go to when you feel these things. Because I did look at overwhelming, and I'm going to read it again tonight because that's what I've been feeling today.
Okay.
Overwhelmed, and the one of the first things that you talk about as a counter thought is peace, just
Yeah.
as you just described. That's who he is. He is the Prince of Peace.
Right.
And he's not a God of anxiety. He's not a God of fear. And if this can be used to center you, whether it's overwhelming or confusion or abuse or whatever it is, this is a great reference point, as she just described, to go back to. She also spoke of the importance of layering the things that you're doing for yourself for healing, whether it be uh, counseling or um, joining groups, sometimes support groups, whether if you're dealing with grief or you're going through a journey of recovery of some type from abusing drugs or alcoholism, whatever it may be, seek the help and the assistance that you need. Another important thing that we even alluded to tonight on the book study is your immediate front line of people. Choose those people that are strong in the things that you're not. Sometimes they will undergird you, stand in the gap, and definitely choose people that are strong in the Lord, or at least seeking Him. If that is the journey that you're trying, whatever journey you're trying to move forward in, that's going to be useful, because in my opinion, because I am a Christian, that God is the foundation of anything that you're trying to do. And even if you're a babe and you're just starting out, you need people around you that can speak words of encouragement and lead you to reference guys like this and lead you to the word. You need people that are strong in wisdom, at least enough wisdom to say, hey, I think you need to consult God, or I think you need to join a group, or I think you need to get some counseling, or I think you need to get materials of reference to help you with what it is that you're struggling with. So often people struggle because they don't have the right tools or the right even people around them. You have to change your company to change your life. You can't
Absolutely.
you can't stay in the same stuff and expect a different outcome.
Mhm.
It's no way. No way. So I am so excited about your message. I'm so excited about this being a tool that people have, because I keep beating it because I've never seen one with steps. And I'm sure they're out there. I just haven't seen them, because I think so often in the body of Christ, that's what I love so much about my pastor. He gives steps of practical application. People need to know what to do, because if they knew what to do, in many instances, they wouldn't go round and around and around in the same situations so often and so long. So I think it is important the way she has structured this book to give you practical applications to work with.
Thank you.
Anything else, Dr. Mitchell?
No, I'll just leave my contact information if that's
Please.
okay. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so if anyone's interested in connecting with me, they can do it a couple of ways. If you are online, you can go to theglory.agency.com. I also have a website, TaneciaMitchell.com. That's TANECIAMITCHELL.com. And I'm also on Instagram and YouTube at Dr. Tanecia Live.
Thank you so very much. That was one of the questions I was going to ask you as I was wrapping up, to give your contact information. And if for some reason you missed that, which it will be on YouTube posted, all of her information, you can always reach her through reaching out to me at Safe Space with Shelby Arrington. I'll be more than happy to put you in contact with her. This book can be purchased, I saw on your website. It also can be purchased on Amazon
That's
and
correct.
Target.
No,
Did I
ma'am.
see Target? I didn't see Target. Okay,
Mm-mm.
Amazon and her website, you can purchase this book. The Glory Agency, if you need assistance in consulting, offers awesome services. So often we all, as well as myself, are confused about what it is. I've been there. What it is I'm supposed to be doing, what direction I'm supposed to be going in, and this young lady has been gifted to help you get on the right track.
Thank you.
I thank you so much for your time this evening. I thank you for coming by, talking to us, explaining, and giving us this wonderful tool. I thank you for the Glory Agency in helping people get on the right track, the grant writing that you do to help people in underserved and underprivileged situations get up to $200,000 to go to school, which is unimaginable. That is a lot of money, a lot of money. That was a great accomplishment. Accomplishment. I know you're very, very proud. So thank you
Mhm.
for coming by Safe Space, and thank you all for listening. Please, please, if you need to contact her, reach out to her. She's a great source for all of the things that she's an author, a scientist, a consultant, she's a grant writer. So if you have a need in any of these areas, or just reach out to her. Dr. Mitchell is a lady about town. She has a lot going on. So again, thank you for coming by Safe Space. Thank you all audience for listening, and you all have a wonderful evening. And we will see you on February 12th with a great testimony. Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. You all have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
evening.
Good night.
Good night.